Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our August edition of our Cybersecurity Awareness Training Seminar. Uh, Let me introduce myself here. I am Brian. I'm the CTO here at PCA, and you're going to listen to me for the next 45 minutes, talk about cybersecurity. Hopefully, you'll get some tips and tricks out of this and how to avoid some of the tactics that the bad guys are using as well, too. So we'll jump right in because there's a lot of content to cover here. We're going to go over why we're worried about cybersecurity, some of the common attacks. We'll touch a little bit on USB, mobile, and IoT devices. Talk about a little bit about shadow IT if you're not familiar with what that is. We will explain that, and then finish up with passwords and MFA. So why cybersecurity? Couple of things, basically. The first and foremost is really the safety and well-being of employees. That's obviously the first and foremost thing. And then organization, client data is also very important. The other thing to keep in mind too is that AI, is also being leveraged for good and bad. We'll talk about that and touch base on that. And then we'll move on to there could be insurance. This might be required for insurance coverage. If you try to get cyber insurance, you're going to have to now provide proof of existence of cybersecurity policies and tools and things you're doing. No longer can you just say you're doing it. If you have an event, you're going to have to prove that you're actually doing it. Otherwise, the claim will be not paid. So, and then finally on compliance, you notice that is actually at the tail end of this. That shouldn't be the focus for your cybersecurity program. If it is, you're going about it the wrong way, unfortunately. Even if you are an organization that needs to be compliant, if you use that as the forefront, you're going to go about this all the wrong way, and it's probably going to fail or be very, very painful for your users. If you do it the right way and in the right order, most of the time, what you create in the beginning will actually lead to compliance just organically. So just keep that in mind. So whose problem is this? Well, there's many, many things. And eventually we're going to put a poll and we haven't got to that yet, but probably starting next month, we're going to do some polls and make this a little more interactive. But most people will say, oh, it's an IT problem. It's not an IT problem. In fact, it's not necessarily technical always at all. In fact, so who's ultimately accountable for it is the top of the org chart. Whoever sits at the top, either the board, the CEO, they own it. They need to breathe it. And by doing that, it sets an example down to everyone else throughout the organization. So if you start at that top of the pyramid, if they're living and breathing it, again, they are accountable, and accountability can't be delegated. Now, responsibility can be delegated, and that's where everybody underneath that top of the pyramid falls into place. Management, they should be ensuring that their direct reports know about what the policies and programs are in place and that they're following them, being compliant. They also should participate in the development and improvement of these plans, as well as everyone else, the actual employees and things like that. Everybody needs to be involved in the development and improvement of the policy, because if you don't get buy-in from everybody, what you're pushing down may not be the right thing. Ultimately, you have to make sure that it aligns with the business, but you also need to make sure it's not becoming a problem for your individuals that are trying to do work in the business too. So you just need to be aware of that. So how bad is it? It's pretty bad, unfortunately. You can see here, this came from the recent Verizon breach investigation report. This is actually a pretty big report that most of the folks in the cybersecurity realm kind of look forward to every year. And this came out a few months ago. And it just kind of gives you an idea of what the landscape looks like currently. And Verizon obviously sponsors this and puts this on. So a lot of folks use this as references. So I thought I would add it in here too. On the left-hand side there, you can actually see that most of the ways in, or how attackers got in, was actually through stolen credentials. And then you see in second there is phishing, and then exploiting vulnerabilities. It falls in a close third there. So it's not always that your vulnerabilities are causing the problems. It's either you could see credentials, people giving their credentials away or not using proper credential, following best practices, or they're falling for phishing attempts. So that's the top two actually. So it's all human related. And then on the right hand side there, you can see that data just backs it up. Basically, it's human element is really the biggest thing that they're going after, because it's the easiest way to get in. And that leads us to our next slide here is how are they doing this? Well, it's called social engineering, and basically it's just manipulating people to get them to do what you want them to do. And it's actually fairly easy to do, unfortunately. It takes a little bit of investigation sometimes if you're being targeted. And it's just basically manipulation, just flat out manipulation. And it has malice intent, unfortunately, in most cases. And they're trying to either steal information or do some kind of financial transactions, get you to do that kind of stuff. So we'll talk about how this all works and how they do this, and I'll give you some examples. Most common attack methods is email. That goes along with the phishing side of things. So we'll spend a little bit of time talking about that. As I mentioned, they can, if you are targeted, they can actually leverage social media, perhaps for reconnaissance through fake friends or things of that nature. Some of the trends: ransomware, extortion, leveraging AI for automation. We'll touch base on that as well. The WHO, sometimes it's criminal groups, hacktivists. Lately, it's been nation states too that are behind a lot of this stuff. And you do have to be aware. Sometimes it could be an insider threat. You may have seen on the news a couple times now. Two companies, hire remote workers, thinking they're actually somebody that wants a job, and find out they're North Korean hackers that they're hiring, and immediately try to cause problems. So it's just something that you have to be aware of. And then the attack vectors, more likely than not, it's cloud or done over the internet. Occasionally, it could be through mobile phones, and rarely is it physically on site, unless you're a really big target, and they're really trying to leverage that locality, where it could be a physical on-site attack. So that leads us on to our next thing here, and that kind of is a lead in for the email stuff, but web browsing. So if you limit your web browsing, basically on the internet, while you're at work, if you limit that to business use only, you will avoid a lot of the common pitfalls that could potentially happen, that the bad guys are trying to, again, social engineer you into doing. One of them is social media. If you don't need social media, I would stay off of social media. Again, if you're leveraging it for business purposes, that's a different story. You could be using it for marketing or whatever, and B2B transactions, possibly. But stay off of social media at best case, and avoid them while you're at work. Wait till you get home to do that, or on your lunch break. You can do it on your phone if it's using the data plan, things of that nature. The other thing the bad guys are leveraging is we mentioned it, browsers. Exploiting browsers. So if you use Chrome, if you use Edge, if you use Firefox, you might be seeing, oh, hey, there's an update. Hey, there's an update. Hey, is there an update? Yeah, there is, because they're finding holes or errors in the browser that can be leveraged to allow a bad actor to do something manipulative to your machine if you stumble upon a site that's looking for that hole. So you definitely want to keep your browsers updated, and make sure that you're following those best practices. Now, I'll also show you here that the bad guys are also leveraging that as a potential attack, but I'll show you how to kind of avoid that. And then finally, the pop-up windows. Most of the common browsers nowadays do have pop-up blockers in them. So this isn't as much of a problem as it used to be, but be wary of pop-up windows and clicking on certain things because there could be something that actually downloads in the background by you closing out a window or things like that. And to avoid that, you can Control W on your keyboard or Alt F4 to get rid of that those windows without clicking on them. So this is one of the attacks that the bad guys leverage. It's called a browser in the browser attack. And basically what it is, it's a way of leveraging two things. First of all, they know people hate remembering passwords. And so what this is leveraging something called federated single sign-on. And what this does is this allows you to use a pre-existing login that you already have. In this case, it could be Microsoft, it could be a Facebook, it could be Apple, it could be Google, Discord, Steam, any of those type of logins that you already have. And if the site that you're visiting or a site, a malicious site that's set up to leverage this is basically going to allow you to use that other login for the site that you're kind of logging into. So in this example here, this is leveraging looks like it's leveraging the Google account, and it's going to do that at Canva there. Sorry, my screen's a little small here, so it's hard to see this. But so anyways, you're going to be logging into Canva using the Google account. So, once you log in there, you put your Google creds in there, you put your Google password in there, and because this Canva site is part of SSO, it allows you to leverage that existing login that you already know and use it for an existing a new site. The problem is that the bad guys have set up manipulative websites that actually harvest the data that you're putting in there. So you're basically giving the bad guys what your username and your password is for whatever account you're leveraging. And it's very, very difficult to visually see. And you can fall for this very, very quickly. And I'll show you what that looks like. So in the upper left-hand corner there, you can see there's two examples of this. This one here just happens to be leveraging Facebook as the login. So you can see on the top left there, the one that's labeled phishing, obviously that is the bad one. And the one next to it is the real ones, and it's labeled as such. But if you visually look at those, even down to the padlock that's at the top corner there, and the URL, the whole URL here on the real one versus the fake one, they are completely identical. So visually, there's no way for you to tell the bad one from the good one. And what will happen again if you type in your login there for Facebook, it's going to work for whatever site you're doing, but it's also sending that information to the bad guys. So in effect, you're actually giving them your password. And then on the lower right-hand corner here, again, it's the same thing. This one's just leveraging Google. So again, visually, the only real difference is the fake one does happen to have that create account here, and this one doesn't, but you wouldn't know that unless you're seeing them physically side by side. And that one really wouldn't give me that much of a giveaway either, just physically looking at that. But again, the padlocks are the same. Even if you click on the padlock, it's going to show you it's an actual Google site and things of that nature. The URLs are the same. They're going to match if you would be able to see them the whole way out. So again, visually, you're never going to be able to tell how this is just physically looking at them. So what you can do if you are leveraging this, and me personally, I don't leverage this. I like to just set up new accounts for every single site. The problem behind the single sign-on is that if you do get breached, any site that you're leveraging that account for is also breached. So just keep that in mind. You've got all your eggs in one basket technically. So if your Google account gets breached, every site you're leveraging your Google account to log into is also now breached as well too. Whereas if you keep them separated, the only thing that's getting breached is your Google, and then you got your bank and you got your whatever, all your other ones. If they're all separate, it's much harder to get access to this because you're going to have to breach them in different ways, as long as you're using unique passwords, and we'll touch about that. But anyways, to visually tell what you can do, let's say you are leveraging this and you get to a site and you want to make sure that this isn't a fake one and it is the real one. What you can do is you can grab that top bar at the top here, like the browser bar here, and this is going to pop up inside of an existing browser window. So the site that you're visiting is going to be behind this window here. And basically, what I want you to do is try to drag that window. You basically left click it and try to drag it off the screen outside of the borders. If that thing stops at the border, right at the border of the window, if it stops there and won't let you drag it to the desktop, there's a potential that is a fake one. The real one, if you drag that with the real one, it will actually let you drag it literally right off the screen, and it'll pop up as a separate window on your desktop. And it's because this pop-up window on the fake one isn't a pop-up window. It looks like it is, but it isn't. It's actually coded, and that code doesn't allow it to break the browser window, which is a way you can real quick kind of tell whether it's a real one or not real one. As I mentioned, I personally would just set up individuals and not use this at all. You could take that with a grain of salt, however you want to do it, but that is a visual or a technical way, physical way of telling whether it's a fake one or not. Excuse me. So that leads us to clear fake attacks, and I kind of touched on this. This is leveraging the browser updates. So they know people, are aware, and people are like me are telling everybody, make sure your browsers are updated. So what they do is they set up malicious websites that when you visit that website, again, you will be prompted with a screen, something similar to, the one in the middle here. Hey, in order to either visit or view this site, you're going to have to update your browser. And I'll provide a handy link here for you to do that. If you go to any website that tells you to do that, it's probably fake. And the reason why is, again, you download that, it's probably a malicious version of whatever, if it even is a browser, that's manipulated in a way that is going to exploit your machine. The easiest way to tell, if normally the browsers, whether it's Edge or Safari or Chrome or Firefox, they all have areas that technically tell you usually when you open them up that they do need updated. And they usually don't tell you on the actual screen itself. Usually what they'll do, like on Firefox, it's usually here in this upper corner here, there'll be an arrow or something saying that there's a download available. There might be an alert there. Same thing here with the three dots. It would usually be in those areas there, and the same thing on Edge too. These are all kind of basically, at least two of them are leveraging the same code backend, so they kind of all act very, very similar when there are updates. And if you do see that, I would say update it if you see it in these areas here, in these corner areas here where the alerts would be. Otherwise, I would not try to click on any of these windows here, because it could potentially fall for a trap that the bad guys are setting up for you. So that'll lead us into email tips. Again, just like the web browsing, I would my recommendation is keep business email for business and keep your personal email for personal. What does that mean? That means you keep your personal life out of your business, because it's much easier to pick up on potential attacks, and tricks that the bad guys are using. What I'm saying is, don't use your business email for your Amazon shopping. Don't use your business email for your book clubs or your coupons or your whatever, your gym memberships or whatever. Keep that in your personal email. The reason why is, let's say you are mixing your business and personal together, and you do a lot of online shopping, and so you're getting all those alerts and stuff coming into your business email. Well, one of the tactics the bad guys use is fake invoices, fake shipping notices, purchases, all that kind of stuff. And if you're doing that commonly in your business email, you're going to open that stuff up, and just by opening that stuff up, the bad guys could potentially do malicious things. If you're not mixing your business email with personal usage, that stuff would be completely out of your business email. So when you get one of those, you're going to be like, wait, I don't buy anything from Amazon on my business email. Why am I getting an invoice from Amazon? Right. That's the whole thing. You shouldn't even be opening that email. Just delete it. You don't do it. So why would it be coming to your business email? It's much easier to determine bad content versus real content, and if you keep those separated. So a lot of the times the bad guys will put the bad actors will put in malicious links that are embedded inside the emails. Oh, hey, your password is expired. Click here. Or hey, you got a voicemail. Click here. Or hey, whatever. And I'll show you an example of it. But my recommendation is to, unless it's something that you were expecting, be very, very wary and cautious of clicking on any links. And I'll show you examples of it and how to avoid that type of thing. And again, go with your gut feeling. If something seems to be off, your gut is probably telling you the right thing. And follow that. I would definitely bring it to someone's attention or report it before interacting any further with it, just based off of your inclination. I mean, if it's like, man, that doesn't seem right, you're probably onto something. There's a reason why you're questioning it. So your best bet is to go with that reaction. So this is an example of what I was talking about. This is, it looks like it's coming from Microsoft. It's saying, hey, your password is expired, and this is coming via email. So first of all, let's point out the obvious here. If my password is expired, how am I getting this email? I'm already logged into my account, and it's telling me that my password is expired. That's the obvious thing. First of all, I wouldn't be in my email if my password is expired, because my password is expired and it wouldn't let me in. Well, I'm already in my email and I'm getting this email. That's the obvious thing. So put that aside. The other thing is that, you read through this and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't go without my email, because my email is so important and I'm such an important person. I get emails all the time, and if I miss an email and don't respond to it in 20 seconds or less, but what they do is they put links in here, and I've touched on this. In case one link isn't good enough, I'll put 2 links in there just to try to convince you twice. You can either click the change the password one, or you can click the one at the bottom here. Either one. This is a fake email, and it's designed to get you to click on these links. That's the whole point. So it doesn't matter which link you click on, because they're both going to send you to the exact same malicious site. And that site is designed to look like Microsoft. And depending on who sent this email and how good they are, there 2 things are going to happen. In an amateur version, you'll get this email, you'll go to this website. It's going to look just like Microsoft. It's going to ask you for your email, your login, and your password. You're going to put that in there, and it's going to error out. You're going to do it again. It's going to error out. You're going to do it again. It's going to error out. Well, it's never going to work because you're on the fake site. And that's the amateur version of this. The good version of this will let you do that one time. So you'll go to the malicious site the first time. You're going to put your username and password in there, and then it's going to repaint the page with the correct Microsoft site. It won't work, but it'll repaint the page. And then the second time you enter that in there, it is going to work, because now you're on the real site, and you're just going to think you fat fingered or mistyped your password the first time. What you're effectively doing is every time you enter the password on that malicious site, it's emailing that info to the bad guys, who are then trying to log in almost real time with that data. So you're effectively giving your username and password away from it. What I would say is, if you get any email that has any type of embedded hyperlinks in it that you aren't expecting, don't click on them. What I want you to do instead is open up a brand new browser, go to that site. In this case, it would be Microsoft. Go to Microsoft by you typing it in there. You get to the right site, and then you log in and see, or try to log in. And, again, it won't work if your password is really expired. You'll get a notice right away saying, hey, your password's expired, as soon as you put that in. But in this case, again, obviously you're not going to get this if your password's already expired, because you're already in your email. So you would never see this. This is just a visual explanation of it. I'm not going to spend too much time on this in the sake of timekeeping here, but it pretty much just shows you visually how all this works, and that they basically grab this stuff and use it real time. So this one here is spear phishing. So this is a little more targeted. So spear phishing usually pretends to be an employee, an internal employee. A lot of times these are targeted towards HR or payroll. And the guise is that, hey, this is XYZ. I need you to update my direct deposit information, and you can get that done, prior to this payroll. If you don't have procedures and policies in place, if your HR or payroll department doesn't have the right procedures in place here, what you're effectively going to do is you're going to change that information because you're not verifying the authenticity of this request. And you're going to send it to a drop account that's basically set up with stolen identity credentials. The minute that money hits that account is going to be emptied and closed. And by the time you as a company or an individual realize that you just been duped by somebody, you're going to have to not only pay the person that you thought this was because they didn't make that request. You in error sent it to somebody that wasn't them. And then you're going to have to try to get your money back somehow or another. So any type of financial request, you need to verify by another means, especially when it's done via email. Verify either at a known voice number or in person if possible. And make sure that they actually made that request. Get them to sign the paper, make sure it's a form that they sign. Never just do these blind transactions via email. And don't, for God's sakes, don't send them the form to sign electronically. Especially if you don't know for sure that it is the person, because obviously this is either coming from a breached email account or it's coming from a fake email account made to look like an internal person. So just be aware of that. And then the last one here is whaling, at least in the phishing side of things. Whaling, this is basically it's leveraging the top of the food chain per se. The big fish tends to be C-level folks. And it usually targets individuals that are underneath or controlled by that report to that C-level entity, whatever it is. In this case here, it's someone pretending to be a CFO, saying they're out of the office and I need you to go buy me some gift cards, or I need you to go buy me some whatever, things of that nature. And basically, again, any type of financial transactions that are being requested via email, you need to pick the phone up, call them at a known recorded good number, and verify that they are actually making this request. And I've had people comment that, oh, well, I can't question my C-level. Yes, you can. In this case, when it comes to a financial, you need to question it if it's just coming via email, because that C-level should be thanking you for double checking to make sure that you're not sending 20,000, 10,000, whatever, $1 million out the window without just blindly, doing checks and balances. And I know that's an extreme, but that's the type of stuff that actually happens. So you need to verify that stuff. And let's say you are in a transaction that's happening, and somewhere along the line, whether it's the party you're dealing with or an entity somewhere in the middle that's part of the conversation. If this happened with a broker client, that one of somebody outside of their control got breached and actually tried to change the routing number at the last minute of a financial transaction, and they were getting ready to just follow the email because that person's email was breached. So the bad guys interjected themselves into the actual conversation through a breach of another company's email. And tried to change the direct deposit information. And unfortunately, our client was going to do it, and they picked the phone up and said, "Hey, I'm getting ready to change that. I just want to verify that this is cool." And the guy was like, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." And that was like $100,000+. So it was one of those things where they saved their bacon by picking that phone up, and that's exactly what you need to do, regardless of the amount of money that it is. Any transaction financially should be followed up with some type of other means besides blindly following email requests. So the bad guys also realize that people are starting to get educated and become smarter when it comes to regular phishing emails. So another way that they're trying to leverage folks is something called through consent phishing, and that's basically this is a screenshot of this app, and this will pop up on your screen saying, "Hey, permissions are requested. Will you give me access to your," in this case, it's basically asking for all kinds of stuff. It can read your email, it can access your OneDrive folders, it can do all kinds of things. This is actually in effectiveness. If you hit blind accept here, This will give them the keys of the kingdom of your entire Microsoft ecosystem and bypass multi-factor too, if you have that in place. So this is very, very dangerous. There's very, very few cases that this would actually pop up on its own. And if it does, you need to bring it to someone's attention so we can see if it's actually valid or if someone's trying to trick you into just blindly clicking on it. So just be aware of that. And then we have quishing. This is called quishing. It's QR codes. These are leveraged pretty heavily sometimes, not always for malicious purposes, but the problem with the QR codes is this is, you scan them with your phone and it sends you to a website. Well, the problem is that just scanning this code, it doesn't necessarily tell you where you're going until you get there. And even if you can see the actual address that it's trying to go to, these leverage shortened versions of it. So it's really just a whatever shortened.url or something like that. It's really just one of those deals where you can't really see the end destination until you actually get to that site. And at that point, it could be too late. So you got to be very, very cautious. Just don't go blindly scanning these things. This is one that says a voicemail. If this is something you don't normally do, obviously don't scan this. And just to prove a point, there was a couple of Super Bowls ago, and I 2, 3, 4 years ago, I forget what it was. But one of the commercials during the Super Bowl was just one of these QR codes bouncing around the screen. And for us old enough to remember it from the old Atari Pong games days, it was one of those things where just bouncing a blank screen, no wording, no nothing, just a QR code bouncing around the screen. And they actually pulled up stats from that. It was like a 15-second commercial, and they had like 1 million people actually break out their phones, scan that code because they were curious of what it was. It was absolute marketing genius. I will say that, because I just can't believe over 1 million people fell for that. But in this case, it was legit, and I forget who did it, but it was just goes to show you how easy it is to get somebody to do this. You know, it's crazy. So you just got to be aware of that. I'm not saying, walk around with tinfoil in your head all day long, but you do need to realize that, again, this is how easy it is to social manipulate people. It literally is. So you just got to be cautious of it. And now that brings us into AI. So AI, I'm going to talk about what I like, to refer to as the good, the bad, the ugly. The good from AI is that it's not going to necessarily replace people's jobs. It will increase productivity, and it also does that through automation, basically. Let's look at it that way. The stuff that AI would potentially replace people in is probably jobs that people really don't want to do anyways. Repetitive stuff, monotonous stuff that really doesn't mean much. That's where AI at this point in time is. And it will allow a lot of automation of that, and that mundane stuff that doesn't necessarily always need a human interaction. The AI can be used for that to automate that and alleviate a human being from doing that. So if you're in a job that does that type of stuff and AI could potentially automate it, yes, that could potentially replace your job, but you probably aren't happy in that job anyways, and that will give you the opportunity to go do something else that probably will be more joyful for you at your work-life balance there. So the bad of AI is that, unfortunately, AI has come to a point where bad actors used to have some skills to be able to pull off a lot of the attacks that they do. Unfortunately, with AI, now unskilled folks can actually ask AI to do some of the heavy lifting that they don't necessarily have the skill sets for, with pretty good accuracy, and could potentially create malicious things that will allow unskilled folks to perform malicious acts. Now, there are some checks and boundaries in place on publicly available AI that's supposed to stop that. It's average at best. I will say that if you know how to manipulate the AI, you're basically social engineering the AI, and you can ask questions. You can't just come right out and say, "Hey, I want you to create a malicious program so I can hack the U.S. government." It's going to come back saying, I can't do that. I got checks and boundaries, whatever." But if you can craft your questions in layers, eventually you will actually get to what you can't initially ask it, but it will actually feed you enough information that you can put that all together and come up with that piece, at least in the public version. Now, there are some dark web versions that are completely unchained, which means there's no checks and balances on any of them. All the information that you want to ask it, it will do any nefarious thing you want it to do. That's not publicly available. You also have to know how to find those, but they do exist. There's 3 really good ones out there, and it's something that you have to be aware of. That it's not always a bad actor. It could be actually AI doing it. So you definitely need to be aware of that. And just a quick story on that. You may have seen. I think it was either a Hong Kong or Singapore company. I totally forget which one it was, but they actually a C-level and board members invited either a CFO or some kind of financial person to a Zoom meeting. And this isn't a shot at Zoom. It's just that just happens to be the platform that was leveraged. And so during this meeting, they were interacting with this individual, and at some point in the meeting, they asked her or him. I'm not even sure if it was a male or a female. It's regardless, but they asked that individual to transfer $20 million to an account. And so this person followed what she was asked by the board members and the C-level CEO, whether it was CEO or it was some kind of C-level person. And then after that transaction was cleared, it wasn't long after she realized that it wasn't the C-level or the board members that were in that meeting. That were actually all AI generated. It's called deep fake. They were basically the only real person there was that C-level or that finance person. And all these other people that attended that meeting were 100% AI driven. And it basically dupe that person into sending $20 million. So you've got to, even in meetings and stuff, if there's any type of financial transactions, even in a Zoom meeting, again, pick the phone up, call. If you're really talking to the human being that you think you're talking to, you'll probably see them pick the phone up, or they'll verify, that it is them. So just be aware of that. That is a very, very extreme case. But AI is getting very, very good that it could actually, all it needs is about a minute of video and about 30 seconds of voice recording. And there's platforms out there you can deep fake yourself. And that's all you need is a minute worth of live video and about 30 seconds of voice recording. And it will actually be able to replicate your voice, interact with people like you're speaking with them. It'll learn your tone. It'll learn all that stuff. And it's that's scary. So you definitely got to be aware of that and make sure that even though you think you're seeing something real, it may not actually be real. And then the ugly. The ugly is let's say you as a company are leveraging AI. That's great. There's pluses and minuses to it. This ugly part is the fact that you need to be aware that you could accidentally leak or reveal internal or sensitive information that you don't want to be publicly available. I know in most cases, a lot of these AI engines say they're private and they protect you against those type of leaks. I take that with a grain of salt. I'm not saying they're being dishonest, but I also question, well, how can I have this whole plethora of information that is out on the internet available to me? And the AI, just so you're realizing it, AI is being trained and learned by what you ask it and what you give it. So every question you're asking it, it's learning based off of what the information is coming back and what you're asking it. So anything you feed into AI technically is being leveraged to relearn that model. So I question whether the stuff truly is private or not. And kept away from the public. The best way is to redact the information. So let's say you want AI to look at your letter or your doc or whatever, and either provide grammatical correction, or maybe you want to change the tone or something of it, or check for tone to make sure it's not coming across in a way that you don't want it to. Just pull the private information out of that document, feed it into AI. It'll spit back out the suggestions, and then you can re-put that stuff back in there. You don't want to be sending it with people's social security numbers or whatever, any type of PII or PHI or any type of account numbers in that. That's the part you just got to make sure that you're aware of, and you have those checks and balances in place if you are leveraging AI for business use. So here's some anti-phishing tips. This is just kind of wrapping up this section here. Again, never click on links that are embedded in emails unless it's something you're expecting. What do I mean by that? Let's say you do legitimately change your password. A lot of cases, they're going to send an email pretty quickly thereafter saying, hey, notice that you signed in with a new device, or hey, I noticed you changed your password. Click here to verify that. Those type of links are okay because you're expecting it. You just did it. But if you're, in the middle of the day, you're getting this, oh, hey, I noticed you changed your password. Well, no, I didn't. And why would you click on it if you didn't just do that? So that's the type of differences of knowing and being comfortable clicking on those links. Otherwise, I would say just open up a browser, go to those sites yourself. That way, you're getting to the right site physically. And if it's valid, it will, obviously tell you as soon as you log in, hey, your password's expired. I need you to change it, or your account's, overdue, or whatever it is. Again, any type of financial transactions, whether it's ACHs, wire transfers, direct deposits, anything like that being done via email needs to be verbally followed up with the sender at a known good contact number. That will 100% save you from any erroneous falling for those tricks and sending money out to somebody else. If you're not using external banners, that's basically this yellow bar here saying, hey, this email is coming from the outside. It's a quick visual way to avoid some of the social engineering tactics that people use, especially when they're claiming to be internal employees or your CEO. If that email is coming from the outside and it has this banner on it and it's saying it's coming from the CEO, that's a huge red flag for you. It's like, wait a minute, why is this coming from the outside if it's my CEO who is on the inside of the organization? That wouldn't have that if it was that. So it's a quick visual way. If you haven't got these enabled, I would highly recommend it. And again, go with your gut. If something seems off, before you interact with it any further, bring it to someone's attention, report it. If you're a client of ours, call our service desk. We can quickly remote into your machines. It'll take 20 seconds to quickly look at it and say, yeah, you know what, that doesn't look right. Let me look into this a little deeper. Or you know what, hey, you're good. Thanks for reaching out to us. It's a good email, and you go about your day. Much easier to do that than to find out, days later after a breach of some sort or another. So USB and mobile devices and IoT. This is real quick. Don't if you ever USB flash drives, the little flash drives that people used to use, if you find any of those laying around, don't plug that into your machine. It could do nefarious things or run something without you even realizing it. So be careful of that. If you do use those, and some people do still, I find some of our architectural clients use these heavily because of the drawing sizes. Sometimes those CAD drawings are really, really large, and instead of trying to send them over the internet, they might transfer them via USB stick. If you are doing that, just make sure you're checking them for viruses on both sides. If you maybe work from home or at work, just make sure you have virus protection at both ends. That way, something nefarious couldn't hitchhike its way from a machine that isn't corporate owned. Other thing too, this has been leveraged recently. Don't blindly accept or use any electronic devices that are sent via the email that you didn't order. If I'm trying to breach a network, The easiest way to do it, especially if there's financial motivation behind it, I'll go spend a couple $100 on an iPad or a smartwatch or something like that, and I'll send it to the place I'm trying to break into. But it also has a back door on the device because I know the first thing that the people are going to do is open it up and put it on their network. I just breached your network without even doing anything except sending you a couple $100 device, which I'll end up making back because there's much higher financial motivation than that couple $100 it would take to send that. This was actually leveraged heavily, unfortunately, against some of our military personnel. Soldiers are in a bad spot to begin with, and they want to breach military bases. They simply send them smartwatches, they send them iPads, and what person wouldn't be happy to get that? And of course, the first thing they do is connect it to the network, and now they technically the bad actor that sent them those devices has now technically infiltrated a military network to some extent or another, so now they're on the inside. So just be aware of that. IoT devices, that's things like your Nest, your doorbell cams, your whatever, Amazon devices, all those kind of things. If you are using those at home, technically these should be on a separate network from what everything else is on. Because I can tell you more likely than not, homeowners, they'll put these things in there and then they just expect them to just be secure. And unfortunately, it's you as the homeowner are responsible for updating these things, keeping them updating them, make sure that they are secure. And everyone's like, wait, what? Huh? What? I mean, that's not part of the stuff I signed up for? No, it's not. And if you have your work laptop on your home network and you have one of those insecure devices, that could get breached, which is going to be leveraged into something else that could potentially happen, like a work device or things like that. Or even if you're on a VPN, oh, I use VPN. Well, if your home network's breached and you're on a VPN, that's just a tunnel right to your work through that encrypted tunnel. So just be aware of that you should have these separated from your normal thing. So my house, I actually have 3 different networks. I have one for my IoT devices, which my Amazon, my security cameras, and things like that. My Fire TV from Amazon is what it is. I don't use the Alexa thing. And then, any IoT device that I have is on its own separate network. And then I have a network for my family, everybody but me, because of what I do. And then I have a network just for me. So there's 3 separate networks there that if my IoT devices got breached, they couldn't access myself or my family, or if something happened on my family, they couldn't access the IoT or myself, or if God forbid something happens to me, that would be isolated from those other 2 as well too. Now I know that's pretty extensive and you probably would need help with that, but just keep in mind that is the best case scenario to do. So you have all that isolation to keep things contained if something were to happen. The other thing too is everyone has a smartphone. Be aware that these things are battery hogs. I'm sure everybody knows that. Instead of using the cable and plugging this into your desktop or your laptop to charge, that will work. But what you don't realize is a lot of times that will turn the cell phone into a USB stick too. So it basically turns this into a flash drive. And if there's something on this phone, somehow this phone got breached and it's just waiting to be plugged into a laptop, you could inadvertently infect your laptop with whatever's sitting on this phone. So make sure you use your wall brick, the little wall charger thing that goes into the plug, the outlet, the electric outlet. That's what you want to use to charge your phone with, not one of your machines. That leads me to the bottom one here too, is it's called juice jacking. I know a lot of people they've been talking about this a lot. I've been talking about this for many months, years, that you got to be careful of public charging stations. Again, as I just mentioned, technically, these could be at airports, it could be at hotel lobbies and malls and things like that. They're basically charging stations that if you're out and about, you can plug into them. There are malicious versions of these set up too that will steal the data off of your phone. When you plug in, you think you're charging it, and it is, but it's also stealing data off your phone if you're not careful. So again, if you're out and about, you can carry your little wall charger with you, or wait till you get to your car and plug into that. That way you're safe. So on the phone thing, there's also something called vishing. So vishing is calling somebody and pretending to be somebody you're not. This is what happened at MGM and Caesars. Basically, the bad actors picked up the phone, called somebody internally at one of those casinos and said, "Hey, this is IT support. We noticed something on your machine. Can we log in? Can you get us in remotely and we'll take a look at it for you?" And they fell for it, and basically they breached the entire network of both those casinos. Again, you need to verify those callers and who's calling in. So even in our case, so sometimes we will reach out to if you're a client of ours. And what we recommend is if you get a blind call from us, and it could happen because we do have remote monitoring stuff on your machines. And if we see something, we will reach out to you proactively. So if you get a call during the day and you didn't initiate it, what we recommend, what I tell all of our clients to do is, you get a blind call from us saying or claiming to be us. What you want to do is just, even if you're not, say you're busy, and just say, "Look, I'm in the middle of something. Can I call you back in 5 minutes?" Wait 5 minutes, call us back at our office number, not some number that the caller gives you, and ask for that individual. It's that simple. And if that's truly us calling, they'll transfer you. If they're available, they'll transfer you to that call. They'll say, "Who? We don't have anybody here by that." And then you've just avoided a potential attack, someone pretending to be us. But that's just something you need to be aware of. And there's smishing. Smishing is texting, folks. We don't leverage this as a business, but sometimes the guys for this is you'll get a text out of the blue. "Hey, had a great time last night. Can't wait to see you again." And then all of a sudden you're like, wrong number, and send it back. Don't do that. What you're opening yourself up to is probably a conversation and images that you don't want to see in the first place. They're just baiting you to get you to react to that. You get one of those conversations, you don't know who it is, just block it. Don't interact with them, just block it. This is things that could be leveraged, from unknown numbers. "Hey, this is the CEO. Need you to go. Let me know when you get this. I got something important." If it's coming from a number that you don't know, and you have the ability to check and see if it's your CEO, then you're avoiding potential malicious attacks. So shadow IT, that's just something that it doesn't always necessarily mean it's malicious, but it could be, "Oh, hey, I have a PDF I can't open, so instead of asking IT about it, I'm just going to go online, do a Google search real quick, free PDF opener, hit it, download it, install it. Hey, great, I can see my video. Okay, is that a valid piece of software? Do you know that? Do you not know that? That's the type of shadow IT. If you're installing or modifying anything on your personal work machine, again, it doesn't have to be malicious, but that is a form of shadow IT, because that is uh, putting in something that isn't necessarily validated or verified by the company or the resources that are in charge of that, and you could effectively lead to a security issue. Another big one is, remote access. "Oh, hey, I need to, access my work machine. I'm just going to download, go to assist or log me in or whatever it is." Did you ask IT if you can do that? Because you're now punching a hole into your machine from the outside. That's not good either. So again, I'm not saying you have malicious intent to it, but it's one of those situations where you could effectively be doing that inadvertently. Cloud apps is another one. "Oh my God, I can't email this, then I'm just going to send it to my Google Drive, or I'm going to send it to my Dropbox or my iCloud." Or maybe you're syncing your stuff to your iCloud and your Google Drive. Do you have company data in there? Is there client data in there? Now it's available on your public version of your cloud apps. Who's responsible for that? If that gets breached and it happens to tie back to your company, what happens there? So you could effectively be allowing critical data, company data out into your private instances that aren't authorized. So again, it's one of those situations where it doesn't have to be malicious. It's just sometimes it's ease of use and you're trying to do things quickly. Those are forms of shadow IT. And the other thing is there could be a situation where there's security protections in place that you are deliberately circumventing because it is hampering your ability to do your job. Again, this doesn't necessarily mean it's a malicious intent, but I'm trying to email this document and it won't let me email this type of document. So I'm gonna, whatever, turn on a VPN so I can get around that, or go to this website so it'll let me do this, or whatever it is. Instead of doing that, what you need to do, and it falls back to the original opening statement, that everybody needs to be part of whatever security program that you have in place, because there could be things in place that are blocking you, that are causing productivity issues, that maybe it's too strict. Maybe, I'm not saying get rid of it completely, but there might be a situation where you have to modify things because it is hampering productivity throughout the company. So you need to report that to either IT or C-level folks, whoever's in charge of maybe a manager that you directly report to. So that gets back up the chain so it can be evaluated instead of you circumventing it, because that circumvention could lead to termination, even though it's not malicious. So you've got to be aware of that. So real quick here, passwords, we're going to touch on that. I recommend 14 characters at minimum at this point. So if you're using anything below that, you could potentially get brute force attacked very quickly. That's basically going through and trying to guess every possible combination of a password. Also recommend it should have special characters, things like the ampersand, pound sign, dollar sign, should contain one uppercase letter, at least one number. At this point, with 14 characters, you do need to leverage some type of password manager or vault, because people are terrible at remembering things, especially if they're all unique, which I highly recommend. So you definitely want to use some type of password manager. Everyone asks me which one. Well, one I will tell you to stay away from currently is LastPass. That one has had troubling times lately. I'm sure they'll get their act together here at some point, but that one is one I would stay away from. If you are on that one, I would recommend looking at an alternative, at least for the time being. There's other ones out there, Keeper, there's a whole bunch of different ones out there, Passly, Bitwarden, there's all kinds of ones out there that you could leverage for that. Also avoid saving passwords in your browsers. If you are breached, the first thing the bad guy is going to do is dump your browser password. So if you're saving them, they not only have your username, but they also have your password too. And so they can leverage that to log into the sites that you have saved in your browser. So be aware of that. The other thing, multi-factor, make sure multi-factor is a case of a second form of authentication. So you have your username and password, which is something you know. The second thing is some sort of token. So you put your username and password in there, that lets you to the second phase. The second phase is usually going to either do one of two things. It's going to ask you for a code that's on your phone through an app, 6-digit code, say type that in, or it's going to push a notification saying, hey, is this you logging in? And you hit yes. That is something that if you don't leverage multi-factor for most of your sites, you should. It's not 100% foolproof. And in fact, it's, if you're being targeted, it's actually less than this now. I have it at 76%. It's actually down in the 60%. But using this is better than not. So I highly recommend leveraging multi-factor for that. So the bad guys could technically get around multi-factor. So what happens is this is a technique that they use, and this relies on two different things. So first of all, this is leveraging push notification, which is that notification that says, hey, is this you logging in? The second thing is that they already know your username and password. So the only thing keeping them out is that multi-factor at this point. So your credentials are compromised. And what they do is they keep trying to log in and send you, hey, is this you? No. Hey, is this you? No. Hey, is this you? 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 And finally, you're just going to be, oh my God, make it stop. And you hit yes. You're done at that point. They've got you. If you're getting bombarded with those type of requests, you need to let somebody know immediately. First of all, figure out what account is actually prompting you for that and go and change your credentials, because your account has been compromised. So that's one thing to be aware of. If you do that, it'll probably go away on its own. You won't have to interact any further because that's how this is leveraged here. This is just a graphical explanation of that. I'm not going to spend much time on that because we're running out of time here. So just wrapping this up, security reminders. Don't click on emails that have links. Links within emails, pardon me. Again, I'll keep talking about that. Another thing I keep pounding home on is verify the person is who they claim to be for any type of financial requests. Make sure you're using strong passwords, multi-factor. Make sure you're storing passwords securely, not in your browsers. Use some sort of password manager or vault. Think before you act. That'll save your bacon more times than not. Like I said, your gut is your instinct is good. Go with your gut. If something looks weird, it probably is weird. Bring it to someone's attention. And then finally, make sure your data is backed up regularly. That will definitely, in the event something does happen, you have the ability to go back on that. So that's pretty much it. We do these on a monthly basis. Again, this presentation is going to change a little bit. We're going to make it a little more interactive and shorten it up a bit because it tends to go over a little bit. I know we started a little late here, but you will get an email if you're here for compliance issues. We'll send out an email to the attendees for attendance. And that should be it. I thank you for your time here. I don't think there's any questions in chat here. Don't see anybody. No, I don't see anything in chat. So I thank you for your time today. Hopefully this was enlightening, and look forward to seeing you guys in the future. Thanks and have a great day, everybody.